The film opens in a desolate, remote region deep within the desert. In this vast emptiness, there stands a single, solitary house belonging to a man named Raghu. Raghu works as a railway gatekeeper, a lonely job where his only duty is to signal green or red for the passing trains. We learn that this isolated line sees only 3 trains a day. Raghu has held this post for 10 years, living completely alone for that entire decade. His only companion is his donkey, appropriately named Signal, whom Raghu considers his best friend, the only soul he talks to and confides in. One day, Raghu stands waiting for the train. As it approaches, he waves the green flag. But as the train rattles past, Raghu is shocked to see a young woman fall from one of the carriages. Rushing to her aid, he finds her unconscious and covered in injuries. He hoists her onto his shoulder and carries her back to his isolated home. Moments later, the girl regains consciousness. Panic sets in the moment she sees Raghu looming over her. Raghu quickly reassures her, explaining that he found her unconscious after she fell from the train and brought her inside to treat her wounds and shield her from the scorching desert sun. He asks what caused the fall. She explains that she was traveling with her husband and everything was fine until she got up to use the restroom. She claims 2 men were fighting in the corridor and accidentally shoved her out of the moving train. Introducing herself as Chaithali, she tells Raghu she must leave immediately as her husband is surely worried and searching for her. Raghu advises her to stay put until the next train arrives, which she can board to reunite with her husband. He explains that they are in the middle of nowhere with absolutely no transportation. Her best bet is to wait here until her husband comes looking. Chaithali, however, refuses to listen. She leaves the safety of the house and walks alone into the unforgiving desert. Inevitably, the heat overcomes her and she collapses. When she wakes, she finds herself back in Raghu's house, with him sitting calmly across from her. He reveals that he was watching her the whole time, knowing she would faint. When she did, he brought her back. He insists that her only safe option is to wait with him for the next train. Chaithali clearly doesn't trust him. Raghu notices her fear and tries to put her at ease. That night, he prepares dinner and offers her his own bed. To prove his harmlessness, he tells her he will sleep outside the house. When she remains silent, too afraid to speak, he steps out into the night, leaving her the privacy of the room. The next morning, Chaithali wakes to find Raghu has already prepared tea. He explains his routine. Before any train passes, he receives a call from the main station to confirm the schedule. He warns her that this specific phone is a receiver only. It cannot make outgoing calls. However, he promises that when the station calls, he will inform them she is here so she can reunite with her husband. Just then, the phone rings. Raghu moves to answer, but before he can mention her, Chaithali clamps her hand over the receiver, cutting the connection. Raghu is baffled. She drops the act. She admits she lied. No one pushed her. She jumped on purpose to escape her husband, Zinsho, claiming he is mentally unstable. Flashbacks reveal Chaithali is actually a psychiatrist. Zinsho came to her as a patient, suffering severe depression after his wife's suicide. Chaithali sympathized with him, and during his treatment, they grew close, fell in love, and married. She notes that her parents opposed the union, viewing Zinsho as a dangerous madman, but she ignored them. After the wedding, Zinsho's behavior darkened. She discovered he was a drug addict who physically abused her, only to apologize later. The breaking point came when she found his diary. It revealed that his first wife didn't commit suicide. Zinsho murdered her. When Zinsho caught her reading it, he confessed. Back in the present, Chaithali explains that Zinsho dragged her onto a train to flee before she could go to the police. She seized the moment he fell asleep to jump. After her story, she asks to bathe. Raghu provides fresh clothes. When she emerges, she finds Raghu has also cleaned up. He confesses that his life changed the moment he saw her. When she asks about his family, he admits he has been alone here for 10 years with no one. He describes his simple life, waking at 4 a.m., waiting for the train, fetching water from a well behind the mountain, and tending to his small farm of vegetables, goats, and chickens. He offers to cook, but Chaithali insists on doing it herself. The phone rings for the second train. Raghu answers, dons his uniform, and heads to the tracks, visibly happier now that he isn't alone. Inside, while cleaning, Chaithali stumbles upon a box of old newspapers. She freezes. There's an article about a murdered couple, and next to it, the ID card of a railway worker named Raghu. She realizes with horror that the man outside is not Raghu. He is an imposter and a killer who murdered the real gatekeeper. Raghu returns and senses her tension. Seeing the ID on the floor, he knows the jig is up. He turns to find Chaithali brandishing a knife. Calmly, he takes the weapon from her and decides to reveal his true self. His real name is George. He explains he was once in love with a village girl who left him for a richer man, destroying his trust in women. His mother later arranged a marriage for him. George asked his new bride if she loved anyone else, promising to step aside if she did, but she denied it. A week after the wedding, his mother died. His wife then moved her orphan cousin into their home to help with the farm. George agreed, only to catch them in bed together. In a blind rage, he killed them both. He later discovered his wife had poisoned his mother. Fleeing the village, George stumbled upon this desolate station and met the real Raghu. The old man, lonely and kinless, took George in. Eventually, the real Raghu died of a heart attack. Since no one ever visited, George simply buried him and took his place. Finishing his tale, George insists he isn't a murderer at heart. Anyone would have snapped. Chaithali seems to sympathize. George suggests that since they are both outcasts with dark pasts, they could live here together happily. Suddenly, they smell burning food. Chaithali insists on going to the well to get water to start over. George warns her the well is in an abandoned, haunted village where the inhabitants vanished, rumored to be the work of a demonic entity. Chaithali ignores the warning and goes anyway. George naps, content, but a noise outside wakes him. He steps out to find a man, Zinsho. Zinsho is looking for his wife who jumped from the train. George, nervous, denies seeing her and retreats inside. Zinsho, sensing the lie, follows him. Spotting Chaithali's dress, Zinsho snaps. He attacks George, screaming about his wife. In the struggle, Zinsho yells the name Shika. George is confused, saying the woman is named Chaithali. Zinsho reveals the twist. Chaithali is actually the hospital director, whom Shika killed. Zinsho explains he is the psychiatrist and Shika was his patient. Zinsho reveals that Shika suffers from schizophrenia. She told George the true story but swapped the roles to paint herself as the victim. Zinsho warns that she is dangerous and begs George to reveal her location. George is stunned. Meanwhile, the woman returns from the well. She hears a strange supernatural sound, and briefly, the camera view flips upside down, the perspective of a demon, before normalizing. She finds George waiting. When he calls her Shika, she realizes Zinsho has arrived. She tries to convince George that Zinsho is the liar, that Shika was the name of the wife Zinsho murdered. She proposes a test. She will wait for the station to call, then ask the police to come investigate. George panics, terrified of being caught for his own crimes. She calls him a coward and turns to leave with Zinsho. George stands paralyzed. Zinsho grabs her to leave, offering George money for his trouble. But George, torn, asks Zinsho to let her stay. Suddenly, the woman grabs a rock and smashes Zinsho's skull from behind. She collapses in tears. George comforts her, saying she did the right thing and now they can be free. But she shoves him away, angry that he believed Zinsho over her. George apologizes. They notice Zinsho is still twitching. George grabs a heavy stick and finishes the job brutally. He tells her to get a shovel to bury the body. While she is gone, George checks Zinsho's wallet. He freezes. Inside is a prescription paper clearly bearing the name Shika. Tears stream down George's face as the realization hits. She played him. When she returns, he looks at her in disbelief, whispering, "Chaithali?" She shakes her head, chillingly replies, "My name is Shika," and slams the shovel into his head. Later, George stumbles out of the house, head bandaged. He has killed Shika. That night, burning old newspapers, he picks up the clipping about the man who killed his ex-girlfriend and her husband. We realize George lied to Shika too. His wife and cousin's story was fake. In reality, he hunted down his ex and her rich husband a week after their wedding and slaughtered them. He smiles a disturbing, twisted smile as the paper burns. It becomes clear George has been psychotic since that first double murder. The film ends on a haunting note. The next day, an inverted, upside-down view watches George's house from the distance, the ancient demonic entity of the village, still watching.